The Lord be with you. I'm Deacon Keith Fournier, and our first reading is from the second book of Samuel. All the tribes of Israel then came to David at Hebron and said, "Look, we are your own flesh and bone. In days past, when Saul was our king, it was you who led Israel on its campaigns, and to you it was that Yahweh promised, 'You are to shepherd my people Israel and be leader of Israel.'" So all the elders of Israel came to the king at Hebron, and King David made a pact with them in Yahweh's presence at Hebron, and they anointed David as king of Israel. David was 30 years old when he became king, and he reigned for 40 years. In Hebron, he reigned over Judah for 7 years and 6 months. Then he reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel and Judah for 33 years. The king and his men then marched on Jerusalem, on the Jebusites living in the territory. These said to David, "You will not get in here. The blind and the lame will hold you off." That is to say, David will never get in here. But David captured the citadel of Zion, that is, the city of David. David grew stronger and stronger, and Yahweh, God of Sabaoth, was with him. And our response is taken from Psalm 89. "I have found David my servant and anointed him with my holy oil. My hand will always be with him. My arm will make him strong. No enemy will be able to outwit him. No wicked man overcome him. I shall establish his power over the sea, his dominion over the rivers. He will cry to me, 'You are my Father, my God, the rock of my salvation.'" A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Mark. The scribes who had come down from Jerusalem were saying, "Beelzebul is in him, and it is through the prince of devils that he drives devils out." So Jesus called them to him, and he spoke to them in parables. "How can Satan drive out Satan? If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot last. And if a household is divided against itself, that household can never last. Now, if Satan has rebelled against himself and is divided, he cannot last either. It is the end of him. But no one can make his way into a strong man's house and plunder his property unless he has first tied up the strong man. Only then can he plunder his house. In truth, I tell you, all human sins will be forgiven, and all the blasphemies ever uttered. But anyone who blasphemes against the Holy Spirit will never be forgiven, but is guilty of an eternal sin." This was because they were saying, "There is an unclean spirit in him." The Gospel of the Lord.